All right, welcome to the Eric Tries Too Hard podcast, episode 120. Before I introduce my guest, I'm going to give a quick plug because for the first time in forever, I actually have something to plug. I've got a comedy showcase I'm putting on at the Auto Bar, the legendary punk venue, the Auto Bar in Baltimore, Maryland, on June 22nd, which my guest knows well as she hosts a show in the upstairs of that same venue. So it's perfect transition right into my guest today, Kim Ambrose. Thank you so much for coming on, Kim. How's it going?
When's your show?
The 22nd of June in the evening time.
That's a really nice day and time.
It's a nice day. Yeah, that's what I thought too. That's what I thought too when we said we'll take any date we can, and they said here's the one that's available. I thought, you know what, that's a good date. So you are you based in Baltimore? Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, excellent. Anytime I meet a comic in where I met you in Ellicott City, I never know if it's DC or Baltimore, and I never know. But yeah, okay, cool. So Baltimore. So how long have you been doing stand up?
4 years.
4 years. All right, cool. And for our listeners who may not be familiar with you, could you tell us, I guess, how often you go up, the kind of like shows that you do, things that you host, just so we kind of get an idea for like how far along you are? Because from what I understand, you're doing pretty good for yourself.
Thank you. That's very nice. Whatever doing good for yourself in local comedy means. So I co-run and co-host a monthly showcase show at the Auto Bar, the second Saturday shit show. If you ask me when it is, I will punch you in your mouth. It's the second Saturday, brah. Every month. It's fun. Also, I go to Coco Lane a lot. That's like my favorite place. Other than Auto Bar, of course. I don't know. Other than that, I go out to Frederick sometimes. The Cellar Door is fantastic. I did a Owl Nest Club. It was kind of like a bunch of white dudes belonged to a bar as a membership, like the Boomy Town, but they're just drinking.
Really?
Yeah, that was fun.
Okay.
It was fun.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't know. I'm around.
No, it's not. Well, you sound, just from the stand-up I saw that you did, you're extremely funny, which was really cool, especially because when I saw you were hosting, and typically I've had a lot of like hosts that I just do mics, so I see hosts will come up, do a joke or two, and then whatever, but you were just like, your comedy was that, it was so dense with jokes. Every turn, like it was just like, oh, during the setup, I'm laughing. Your tags kept going, and you even mentioned throughout the night, you said you were kind of in a transition point with your stand-up. And so could you describe like kind of what you're going through as someone who's been doing it for a handful of years and is pretty experienced? Could you kind of give us an idea of what you've been transitioning from?
I don't know. So I feel that's a good question. Thank you for asking it. I'm going to do a couple real quick. Great question. Thank you for asking it. And next question. I'm in a place where I'm going through a lot of change, and things are positive and they're moving, and I'm in a really awesome place in life for myself. And I want to talk about all of this on stage, and I don't know how to yet.
Yeah.
And what it comes down to is I didn't come out to not have fun and make people laugh. So you heard me do jokes about like vaginas looking like something aliens make, and just silly. I want to be right now. I just want to be like silly and have fun. Like I have a lot of heavy shit on my mind, and I want to talk about it on stage. But what overruns that right now is I just want to be silly, you know?
Yeah. Are you thinking about merging the two in a way of material versus performance, or are you really just like, how do I pull the silly happiness out of your brain? How are you handling that basically?
I feel like for comedy with me, like when it comes down to it, you know, like everything I do has a foundation of like, where am I at? What am I going through? But really, when I walk out there, what I'm thinking is, what does the audience want? It's because it's not about me. It's about you guys. Like, if you weren't here, this wouldn't be happening. We'd be a bunch of dickholes talking shit into a microphone. That's all it would be without the audience. And like the
So
audience,
I've done that or just like that. Yeah.
we've been there. We've all been there. So I feel like when they're there and they're listening and they're being attentive, it's kind of like, well, fuck all my problems. Like, let's tell some fart jokes. You know what I mean? I want to make you laugh. But I think it's a balance. I think I can have everything. I think there's the best of both worlds. Like, I think I can talk about my stuff and have other people relate to it, which is really what I want the most. And I can do it in a way where it's like, we're just having fun. Like, we're just talking shit, you know, a couple of dudes drinking some brews, hanging out, you know?
Oh, I know. Oh, I know. Very relatable with that one. Yeah. Well, that's really interesting. And I'm glad you liked the question. Sorry to dive into something so specific about the craft of what you do, like immediately, but like I wanted to finish that conversation. No,
that's cool. That's cool. I appreciate it. It helps me, actually. It helps me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just saying the words out loud.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what am I doing? Oh, yeah. Okay, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. What is the
why? Yeah. Oh, the why. Yeah. Never question the why. You just do it. No, well, it's cool that you mentioned reading the crowd and kind of going like, what do they want? Now, is that more because you're thinking about, let's be silly, I don't want to talk about my problems tonight because I want to make you laugh? Or do you also go in and you have to kind of consistently, are you the type of comedian who consistently goes in, reads each crowd to the best of your ability and tries to tailor your act to them? Or do you kind of have an act that you're like, well, this is generalizable enough? How do you plan for
that? You're really good at questions. Like, you nailed that question.
I just wish I had some answers. Yeah.
I think that when it comes to reading the audience, like, I don't really have a choice. Like, that's how I work. I feel things. I feel people and I feel vibes and I feel rooms and I'm there in it. And it's kind of gonzo, if you will, where it's like, I'm here and I'm aware that I'm here and I'm also aware of what here is separate from me, but with me in it. Am I too much right now? Tell me to shut up. Tell me to shut up.
No. No, I like that's what I found with the podcast is that you just need to be interesting. And I always feel like, oh shit, I'm talking some nonsense with like the dumbest thing ever. And someone will be like, oh, I really like that you said that. But then I'll say something I think is a great joke or something, whatever. And they'll be like, that was stupid. You could have skipped that. Like, fine. No, pontificating is the best thing for podcasts. So no, that makes sense. You're kind of looking at it as a bit of an existential view, but also not just, well, that plus viewing it as a reality.
That's how I cope. Let's put it that way. That's how I cope, is to see things as a whole and then to be in it in the micro and the macro, right?
Yeah.
That's how I do it.
That's how I just calm my nerves. Dead serious. It's always like, I'll go and do like this, show I've got coming up. It's the first time I'm doing more than like 5 minutes. And it's the first time there's like a non-open mic audience where I'm like, oh shit, people paid for this. Like I have to hope that I don't suck.
If I was going to be so bold as to offer advice in a situation like that, my advice would be to talk to them. Don't tell your jokes at them. Like, if you are worried about doing more than 5 minutes, like you have jokes, they're there. So just talk to them. You know what I mean? Like, use conversation to segue into your joke. Like, make them a part of what you're doing. Would be my advice.
No, that's great advice. That absolutely, that's open mics that I found is like when I'm just kind of like, I know practicing your own material without a crowd is like, it's not, of course, at all the same, but for memorization purposes, I'll still do it just so I have the words in my head that in case I don't have to rely on.
And the rhythm, like how you want to say it. It kind of comes out while you're by yourself because you do it 2 and 3 times, and that second or third one, you're like, oh, that one.
Oh, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, that 2 or 3, that's you doing 2 or 3. Me, it's 200 or 300 before I'm just like, oh, okay, that's because I'm so new at this. I'm just trying to like whatever. But it's like whenever I'm doing the open mics, I'm just trying to go, all right, let's either really refine this bit or let's do this new bit because I want to like get all this material at least said out loud so I can kind of take it back with the recordings and go, what's working, what's not, all that shit. And in doing so, I've had no breathing room to really transition well. And where I find when I'm practicing with myself, I'm finding these natural transitions, and I just don't have time to do that with 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And so it's like being able to have a little bit of time to stretch. I think your advice works perfect. Your advice works perfect with that, with the use the conversation to segue into the jokes. But also just, you mentioned, say it to, like, you're talking with the audience, you're talking, not talking at them. Josh Caderna has a buddy of mine who has a very popular podcast. I'm sure you've seen him around. But he's like having these sets where he used to just be like, what did I do wrong? And his friends would be like, oh, you talked at them. Like, you just aim the jokes at them. So your advice is spot on.
Josh is brilliant. Josh has got it.
Well, that's how, like, the show is that I'm putting on is headlined by his podcast partner Mike Moran, who's become a good friend of mine over time. And yeah, dude, I do too. That's why I put this whole thing on. I want to give him a lot of time up there to, like, you know, really do his thing. But anyway, enough about those other guys. They got plenty of attention. No, like, thank you for that.
Nice.
Yeah, thank you for that advice. That actually, I just wanted to point out that was definitely echoed by other experienced comedians. Like, that's great advice for anybody, myself, including me. That's fantastic advice. And that is something that, like, always having trouble with was the pacing of giving people time to laugh.
Yeah. I do that too. It's almost like they're like, excuse me, can you shut the fuck up? I'm trying to tell a joke over here. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, I'm in my room. I don't know what all this is right now, but you're fucking up my shit.
Your laughter is messing up my time. Just come on.
No, it's always appreciated. That's all I want. That's all I want is to hear that laughter. But you're right. It takes so much effort to be comfortable in that. It's so hard to be comfortable just being able to take a breather. Like, oh, I did it.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think as comics we ever go, I did it. I've done enough.
I mean, I've been doing comedy very short time, but I've been doing podcasting longer and music forever.
Okay.
A part of it is never enough. You are never, like, you're thrilled in the moment, and then you go home and you're like, all right, what's next? It's like, did you ever see the Jerry Seinfeld documentary Comedian?
No.
It's him as part of it, and then a guy named Orny Adams, who's like the up and coming comic, who's they also follow him.
Yeah.
And there's a great. Well, he did this great, very quick scene where it's like after he does, it was either like late night for the first time. Orny Adams does late night for the first time. He's in his hotel room afterwards. He's watching it on TV. He's got a cigar in his hand, champagne in the other, and he's talking to the camera about, like, suddenly he's just like completely depressed, and he's like, well, I gotta do the next thing now. But he hasn't finished the champagne. It's still half drank, and he's depressed again. Oh, man.
That's great.
All right, so what got you excited about comedy, even before you did it? Like, excited about, like, your first or earliest big memory of, like, comedy touching you in a special way?
Oh, my God. Comedy has touched me in such a special way. I can't even talk about it because it told me I wasn't allowed to. But
right, it'll hurt your parents. Got it. Gotcha.
So I had the fortune of kind of being, like, raised on comedy. Like, I don't know, that my dad kind of talked about comedy in a way where he was proud to grow up in a generation where pop culture wise, some of the most amazing shit happened. Like Carlin and the beginning crew of Saturday Night Live. Like, my dad used to, like, tell me stories about the Saturday Night Live skits that he watched as sort of a story of, like, that was my childhood. You know what I mean? Like, Belushi's Samurai TV Repairman. Like, just hearing that as a story, because it's such a fucking funny premise, right? Like, he just cuts shit in half with a samurai sword. And he's super intense about it. And then it's either fixed or it's not fixed. Like, that's it. Like, it's so great. Him, the weather. I remember my dad took me to school one time and was telling me about when he would be like, winter came in like a lion, but it's gonna leave like an albino saber-tooth ostrich. And then next year it's gonna come in like a lamb with one tooth missing. And then after that, like, I don't know, it's just so silly. Like, I used to listen to Steve Martin on vinyl. My dad had this vinyl of Steve Martin, the King Tut song and all that. I don't know. I remember watching Sam Kinison when I was a kid and like just loving like how angry he was. Like that was amazing. And like the fact that Sam Kinison like died in a super rock and roll way, like really young, and he was a preacher when he was young, and then he goes on stage and he screams, he's angry, like almost sacrilegious, like joke style, like, and then he goes out in a ball of flames. Like comedy has like been a legend like in my life, I guess. Like, it's bigger than other things, you know. I'm gushing.
That's really cool. No, that's really cool. I have had a lot of. I relate to them. My parents were huge. Like Seinfeld was a big thing for them, and so when I was way too young, I'd watch these Seinfeld episodes with them, and I like when they aired, and I had no idea what a menage a trois was, but I was thinking about it all day long in the bath. Well, still do, but like but no, I've had a lot of people answer that question. And yours is the first one where it's really just like, no, this has been ingrained and kind of passed down.
I don't even want to sound like that, though. Like, I don't want to be like, this is my glory. Like, it is not.
No, it's inspiring because that's what, like, because I have a daughter. And so it's like, I always want her, and it could be a son, doesn't matter. I mean, I know she's a daughter. I changed her diaper a lot today. But I mean, like, if I had a son, too. Either way, to share with them, like, I even worry about it almost like sharing with them all this comedy stuff. My wife always tells me, like, if I quote, I know this is kind of a plebeian example, but anytime I'd quote like episodes of Friends so much that she'd just be like, you know, they're not your friends. Like they're not your friends. Yeah. I worry so much that they're going to, like, my daughter's going to just be like, Dad, did you actually know these people? You're telling me.
Were they your friends? Were they really your friends, Dad? But were they really?
Yeah. These intimate details about, I don't even know how I'm going to explain Patrice O'Neal to my daughter. Like, this is going to be extremely hard enough time explaining. Yeah, exactly.
It means a lot to Daddy. And, yeah.
And Daddy disagrees with almost everything he says, but he's a genius whose words are amazing. I don't know how to explain it.
O'Neal?
I think he is someone who I agree with, like, every point he makes, but his conclusion I find myself on a different plane as. It's the weirdest thing. I think he's my favorite comic. I think he's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But like, I literally will be like, I agree with all the points you're making. And then I'll just be like, but somehow I still disagree with you in the end. But I love you. Whatever.
Maybe you're.
Yeah. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on Patrice O'Neal? I'll talk about him all day. Jesus Christ.
I think he was one of those people that like had the perfect combination of being super confident in himself and also being like somehow 100% personable. Like,
yes,
it's weird how like you like him because because of the fact that he doesn't give a fuck if you like him or not.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Which is somehow likable no matter what. Well, also he would get to a point where like you hear him arguing with somebody and they'll make a valid point and he'll go, okay. And you're like, oh. That's how he's that smart. That's how you have to beat him, is you just have to actually beat him in the argument. You can't out-argue him. You just have to have better facts and arguments, but most of the time you didn't.
And that right there, what you just said, like, to beat him, you actually have to present the right argument, like a better argument. That's the greatest tragedy that we lost with him. Yeah. So many other people, like, there are some people that just require truth and they don't accept anything else. And it's like, fuck, how do you have the gumption to be that person all the time? Like,
yeah,
that's awesome.
No, that's something. It's really cool. That's the whole truth aspect. Is I know people have said all throughout time, comedians are on seeking truth, but for the first time in my living memory, the majority of popular comedians are the ones that seek truth. Like, that's in right now, or at least has been the last few years. You agree with that? Disagree with that? But that's just what I've seen.
I totally agree with that, and I think that's a really good thing. But I think that there's also, like, with every sunny day there must be rain, right? I feel like some people are taking the importance of their ideas to just like stupid levels. Like, again, I feel like it goes back to the audience. It goes back to the audience. If this is all about you and you're just up there to do your thing and like say what you think about life and you think you're absolutely right, like that's half of performing comedy in my mind. If the audience isn't reciprocating and going, holy shit, this motherfucker I've never heard anything so right in my life. Like if they're not on board and they're not agreeing and they're not like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like if their souls could scissor, if your soul could scissor.
That is the phrase you were looking for. It was on the tip of my tongue. I know. Yeah, go on.
It was a tip on my scissor-eating tongue. If that's not happening, I feel like you lost at least half the battle. And I think with purvey truth, like that's all good and well, and I wish you the absolute best with that because that's what we're all here to do. But I will take a dick joke any day over hearing what somebody thinks about politics or feminism or anything. Like, just make me laugh. That's all I want. That's all I want.
And quick, brief before we move on, taking it back to Patrice O'Neill, there was a great quote. I mean, this quote has been said by a million different people, but I think that shows how accurate it is. They were referred to him as the only person who made them laugh the hardest while disagreeing with them more.
Yeah.
Just like the fact, but like you said, it can be your truth as long as it's funny.
Yeah.
Because if you forget while you're up there and you're not being funny anymore, then it is what it is.
Yeah.
Well, how did you what was the moment where you got from, well, obviously you loved comedy growing up, like you said, it was just comedy in itself was a legendary figure in your life. Where was the point in your life where it kind of crossed over from just something you enjoyed to something you wanted to actively pursue?
I didn't really think about actually doing comedy like ever. Like, and I went through my first breakup and I was with a dude for 6 years. And after that happened, like stuff from my childhood surfaced because it makes you question things about yourself. Like, who am I attracted to and why are they attracted to me? And am I going to keep repeating these bad habits and da-da-da-da-da? And like just a whole bunch of feminine bullshit just came right to the surface. So, so I went through a time of anger and depression. And, you know, to keep it light, because that's how I like to do it on podcasts, is I like to talk about real surface shit. So then I decided, like, okay, so I got to get out of this funk because that's a waste of my time, right? Like, so I was like, well, I like to write. That's always helped me. What's the hardest thing to write? And the hardest thing to write is comedy because there's only one outcome. And if you don't get that one response, you failed. Right? It's hard. You failed. So let me distract myself from all this bullshit, and maybe I can use this as a tool to like work through it at the same time. You know, mothering myself, basically, always mothering. And I wrote some shit, and I went to Reno with a friend of mine, and I read it to her, and she was like, dude, what do you have to lose? Just go do it. So I signed up for Red House Tavern, and I fell in love immediately. Like, I was like, this is it. I love this. This is great.
Yeah. And is this do you do anything else in comedy, or is this like, this is the path you're pursuing?
I don't have a comedy career, and I'm not actively pursuing anything. I am genuinely here to have fun. I've been through so much stress, and like my body hurts all of the time. Like, I work hard. And when I go to comedy, I want to have fun, and I want other people to have fun. You know? Yeah. An outlet.
That's good to keep it in that perspective. That's like earlier, and then sidetracked myself, which you've met me, you'll meet me again. This is pretty typical. What I'll do to calm myself down is like with that show that I have coming up, and I do this for open mics too. I look at the kind of what you were saying. I look at the micro, and I'm just like, okay, I want to get all this perfect. This is my desired outcome. I want all of this to go right. This is right. These 5 minutes, this is the most important thing in the world to me.
Oh, right.
But then if I get too nervous, I go look at the macro and I go, this means nothing.
Yeah.
Like, this is quite possibly the most meaningless thing happening ever. And so it's just like, oh, okay, that important, relax.
Yeah.
But
I've had that
cool.
Talk with myself, but because I'm at like a really bad show that I like rushed to get to, and I haven't eaten dinner, and now I'm pissed, and I just want to fucking have a good set, and I'm going to throw everything out the window I planned because they don't give a fuck. So I'm just going to do poops and farts and dick stuff and any kind of bodily fluid. We're going to talk about that. Like, yeah, I've been there, man.
Well, that's okay. So that's interesting because I ask off the podcast for advice on anything. I'll take all the unsolicited advice and
what a hoarder.
What I know, right? I just want it. I want it all. But like, so I've actually, that's one of the things I've gotten staunch sides on, almost split right down the middle. From the audience isn't having it, make them laugh, or do it what's going to make you laugh, but like basically don't worry about the plan that you had. But then I also have the other side, the other half of the comics I talk to, who will staunchly say, no, you're working on your bits, the audience is a non-factor, you just got to plow ahead, do that. Like, do you find that there's kind of a switching, or is it really, to you, with the way that you approach comedy, it's just, I notice this crowd isn't paying attention to the bits, I'm not going to try anything long form, I'm just going to go for it and try to get the laughs here and now?
Okay, so a lot of questions there, and I'm going to list all of them in chronological order. Okay.
Oh, beautiful. So, I forgot them all already.
So I think there's I have a two-part answer to the first part of your three-part question. Okay.
I'll make an outline. Hold on. Excel. Okay, go on.
Okay. I think that one, it does change. It does shift. It depends, in my opinion, it depends where you are with shit. If you are working on your shit and you go out somewhere and you see a crowd that you're like, they're not going to care, and I don't feel good enough about where I'm at with that shit to do it, so I am going to switch my shit up and do a whole different set now. Or if you're like, I don't give a fuck where they are, I am working on this, and that's what's important to me. Like, it just depends, I think, where you are with yourself. The other second part of that same is that it depends what you define as successful in comedy. If you think being successful in comedy means working at clubs, then you just have to nail your 5 minutes. You have to develop your bits. If you think doing comedy is more of like a process and it's kind of a thing that you just do over time, and maybe tonight this bit's really important to you, but another night, like, you're like, I just want them to laugh. Like, that's what that's all I care about right now. Like, I'm doing 45 minutes of crowd work. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Fuck it. Like,
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. Absolutely. No, I haven't told this story in the long form. I'm going to do it on a future podcast. I went up at an open mic that had a decent sized crowd for the night. But the guy who went up before me was kind of, he's a comic who does a lot of these mics, but he's kind of like, I look around, I see how people perceive other people. People think this guy's crazy, and he probably actually is crazy.
Right on.
But he went up there, he's an old white guy, and he just started yelling the N-word at the crowd.
Oh boy.
And it was part of his jokes, but it was just
aggressive.
Felt like a riot was going to happen. Yeah, exactly.
Like no one was having fun.
Yes, exactly. And he could not perceive it. He thought, by the time I get to the end of this joke, I'm going to be killing. You could tell he was just. But then I had to go up after him, and I went up. I did okay because I made a joke about him stealing all my bits, and that worked fine. That was great. But then I tried to launch into my stuff, and then I realized at the very end of it, after completely bombing for the next 4.5 minutes, realizing, oh shit, no one wanted to hear a word I had to say. All anyone wanted to talk about for the next 5 minutes was this crazy guy and what they just saw. And it was yeah.
On behalf of the entire human race that ever has to talk to you, what a gift you are going to give everyone around you, that you had a moment in your life where you went and you actually felt it. Like, no one gives a shit about what I'm saying. Do you know how many people I wish learned that lesson in their life? You know what I mean? Like,
well, let's pause. I still have to learn that lesson in real life.
You're a better, stronger man because of that.
I'm on my best behavior on the stage. That's
cut that out. See, that's your first.
I know, right? Oh my God. No, that's what's. That's one of the things I love doing a podcast is like I work in the psychology field,
Okay.
and so I've done therapy a million times, and so like
Awesome.
I like reading, like I like having an ability to read people on a certain level, not on some like intimate. Like I know people confuse therapists with psychics a lot. Like, it's like get a general sense of human interaction, like whatnot. But so like looking at that's why I ask such detailed questions about your interaction with the audience. I'm so fascinated by how to read this crowd of individuals. And like, cause that's always mind blowing to me, especially when you have these smaller open mics where like the Coco Lane open mic, that crowd probably at various times had between 10 and 20 people in it, not counting all the comics. And it's few people in the scheme of things, decent for a mic, but like, these are all people who probably have different comedic sensibilities, and it's not a big enough crowd to just nail half the crowd. You have to like really pick up on everybody, and it's just how in situations like that, smallerish crowd, do you work on like actually reading everyone?
Somebody told me before, like, you should never look the audience in the face. Like, just look at the back wall, and like, or if you're gonna look at people, look at the people who are laughing. Like, I think I heard that Steve Martin said, if there's like 300 people in a room and 299 of them are laughing, I'm going to focus on the one that isn't, because that's just what my brain does. Like, I need everyone to laugh. And it's like you said, like, it's never enough. Right. So,
yeah, that's true.
Like, you know, so I think like for me, I definitely look at people and I try to figure out if they're having a good time, and if they're not, I try to not make that my problem. And that's kind of like work, you know, because I'm like, okay, here's what I came to do. I came to give you guys something to smile about, and for me to have fun, I have to not feel responsible if you didn't come with that same intention. So what I'm going to do is try my hardest. I'm going to try my hardest because I want you to smile. I want it so bad. I want you to smile all over my chest. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm so hungry for you to just smile and laugh and have fun. You know what I mean? I'm a thirsty bitch about it. Like,
mixing metaphors, but I get it.
like, I don't know. But I'm not gonna beg.
Yeah, I'm not gonna beg. I like the way you put it. It's not your problem. It's like you're the host of a party, and if somebody had a shitty day on the way to your party, you come up, you're like, hey, it's so good to see you. Let me get you a drink. Let me this. And if they're still being kind of shitty, you move on. And you start, I'm going to go and talk to the rest of my guests who are enjoying it. Yeah.
Right.
No, absolutely. Because as you were answering that question, I instantly wanted to ask, like, oh, shit, I should ask, like, is there a point where you abandon people? You're just like, I got to let you go. There's nothing I can do for you.
Yeah, when they fucking heckle you.
Well,
You're like, and your feelings don't matter as of right now.
Do you? Okay, let me ask you this then. So in a heckler situation, and of course, I know standard of hecklers tend to go like, oh, someone like yelling a joke or an insult out at you. It's like, well, it can also just be somebody talking talking to the person at their table or disrupting the show in some way.
No,
when you have to deal. Yeah.
I don't consider general discussion to be heckling. I see heckling as a direct action where somebody's like, I am involving myself in the show, and even to the more extreme, I am going to shit over everything you just built. Like, I'm going to ruin all that.
Okay, okay, gotcha. So there is a clear defined, gotcha. So you're making a clear defined line. So when it comes to the people who are just kind of murmuring to themselves, you let that go?
They're just rude.
They're just rude, okay.
Raised right.
Okay, so how do you, I know case-by-case basis, but what's your preferred method of handling a heckler? Do you just like embarrass them? Do you appease them a little by making them apart while making fun of them, but kind of let them off the hook? Or do you ignore them? How do you handle it?
Again, it totally depends on how everyone else in the room is taking it. If they are like, man, this person's being funny and they have a good point, and why is she saying those rude, horrible things, then you fucked up, because they're, you know, I don't think it's cool to ever lose control of the room. Like, I don't know why, but I feel it is the comic's responsibility to have the moment on lock. And I think that's because I've seen like Joan Rivers be heckled on the documentary about her, and she immediately was like, hey, I'm saying this joke because I have a personal experience with this in my life, and if you have a problem with that, you're out of your fucking mind. Like, I'm up here to and like she went right from that with no difficulty at all, no stammering, no where do I go, what do I do? She went right into like a segue, and then that went directly to a one-liner, and the room was laughing again, and it was 2 minutes that felt like an eternity. Like, it doesn't matter if the heckler's ruining your set. It doesn't matter. Like, everyone should be laughing. So whatever you have to do, and I think sometimes that means being overly nice to them. I've treated hecklers like babies. I think you should take a gentler approach, because if you create aggression, it doesn't go down from there. There's nowhere to roller coaster. There's nowhere to ascend or descend, right? Like, if you just go right to fuck you, you know, it's like, well, now it's weird. Now mom and dad are fighting and we're all uncomfortable at dinner.
Yeah.
I think if you can have a conversation with them, that's cool. But I also to calm them down and to stop that madness. But it's also not about them, and it's not about what they're trying to do. It's about everybody trying to have fun. You know?
Yeah. Well, that's a very positive approach. You take a very altruistic approach to comedy. I like that. That's going to fit with the new silliness or what have you.
Right on.
So with your regular show, the second Saturday shit show, I won't ask when that is on. Do you have, this is just me, sorry, being ignorant, but do you do themes for each show? Do you have a theme for each show, or do you just like bring a bunch of comics on and it is what it is? What's the format basically?
We have some special shows. We actually just had our ladies showcase show. It was super fun. Wendy Townsend headlined. She had the audience eating out of her hand in 45 seconds. It was so great. Violet Gray went up and was amazing. Everybody was so good. I'm sorry, I'm gushing. I got lost in the ladies for a second. Yeah, we have local headliners, people who are just have been funny forever and just they're great. We have some new faces headliners, people who are like really shining they shine.
They shine and they
It's beautiful to see. We got I don't mess it up, but I'm pretty sure we have Umar Khan coming up.
Nice. He was really funny at Coco Lane. I'd never seen him before. He's very funny.
He's really funny. Yeah. I like his timing a lot. I don't know. We have a fun time. Sometimes we do theme shows. We have our 4th anniversary is coming up, and I'm overly excited about it. But yeah.
That sounds awesome. Nice. Yeah, well, I'll make sure you plug those again at the end.
Question. I kind of just said a bunch of shit. Sometimes we have theme shows. Sometimes we just have good shows or great shows. They're all fun, and they're all free.
Oh, nice. The upstairs. I've never actually performed anything at the upstairs of Auto Bar. Like I've played in bands, so I've been downstairs a million times. But every time I've hung out in the upstairs Auto Bar, it's like a really cool, like environment. Just a great hang.
We've been very fortunate. Excuse me. We've been very fortunate to get to do up there, because it kind of feels like our treehouse. It's like we go up there and while we're in there, like that's our shit. Like us, Auto Bar, like the shit show, Auto Bar, like the whole thing. It's cool. Like the floor is black and white checkered, and we have these like random trash lighting, and like we just manage. Like it's great. Sometimes the floor is vibrating because there's a metal band playing downstairs during our headline set. Like it is shit show. Like it's a fun time.
Dude, speaking of that, I didn't think to ask that, but now I'm really excited you talked about that when bands play, because I've always wondered like what the hell happens when you have a band downstairs. We pull up our big girl panties and we march forward. That's what we fucking do. Well, that's what I figured. That's what I imagined in my head. So that makes sense. Well, like my band got to play Warped Tour last year, and we had and I went to the for the first time ever they did a comedian stage. And so after our set, I was like, I'm going to go check out the comics. And it was a bunch, I guess the Laugh Button out in LA was booking it. And so they just booked a bunch of like younger club comics, alternative music festival for like tweens. And they're trying to tell these jokes about Tinder to a bunch of
Right.
14-year-olds with backpacks on in between seeing bands. And the whole time there's like bands just like blasting music from main stages behind them, and they never commented on any of it. And it was the most, people are walking in for a punch or for a setup, walking out before the punchline. Other people walk in just for the punchline. That's a shit show.
That's a shit show.
When I asked one of the guys who I talked to from that show, what do you do when there is an audible distraction from a band? Like, how do you address that?
You just soldier on. Like, the audience is so good to us because they just like pay attention. They just keep focusing. They're just like, no, continue with your story. Like, no, come on, I want to hear the end of this. You know,
that's a good crowd. Is it like your regular crowd, or is it just different people every time, and it's just a good environment that keeps people focused?
It's a mix of both. We have some fantastic people who come up and see us every month, and we absolutely love seeing them. And we have some newcomers, and usually by the end of the night, the room is full. People just kind of wander in. Oh, there's a show upstairs, whatever. It's free, hang out. And when they come upstairs, they see something local, homegrown, and funny as fuck. You know what I mean? Like, it's cool. It's fun.
That's on the poster. That's a good description. All right, so like you said, moving. Well, actually, were you? So I'm impressed because you had mentioned after getting out of a 6-year relationship that you kind of reevaluated things, and I was about to jump in with similar to any kind of major like life thing where it's like if you make your job your life for a year, if you make your hobby or whatever it is like your life for however many years, or even addiction, drinking 24/7 for a handful of years, oftentimes people come out of all those major things like, oh, who am I? Because I just spent the last X years defining myself as this person.
Right.
And I think it's impressive that not only you did that, but it was just like you were looking at, like you said, looking at things from a specific perspective of like, what do I want? What do I attract? Who am I? All that stuff.
Yeah.
Makes me ask you, did you do well in school?
I did really well in school, except when I was not motivated because my brain was busy concerning itself with other things. Like,
okay.
I got in trouble for reading a book in school.
Yes. Okay. That's a lot of perfectionism at all, or how are you?
I wouldn't say perfectionism. I would say like control issues. I would also say more than control issues.
That's
I would say like
the nice way of saying control issues.
I mean, you call a horse a horse. I mean, come on,
yeah.
With control issues, and also just like, I don't know what to call it, because I'm not obsessed with success. I'm obsessed with doing things, making things, and making things happen.
That makes sense, because you are running a show. Like, people who run shows, there are a lot of comics who would love more stage time, and the easiest way to do that is to run a show.
Mike Quinlan is running a show. I am co-running a show.
Gotcha. Well, at least you're a part of. Point is, you're a part of making things happen. So with all those things in mind, I think the reason I brought that back to that is mentioning you're in this new place where there's happier things happening, and you're feeling more of a silliness, and you're bringing more of a silliness to the stage. That to me is a clear sign that any negative parts of the control or the perfectionism or whatever it is, that actually is like a really awesome sign that you're kind of turning it into a positive, and that you're allowing to, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like you're allowing yourself to let go a little bit and just be like,
child, you don't even know. You don't even know.
I think your sentence and sudden change of accent tells me everything I need to know about that.
Well, I will say that's very nice to hear, and it's a really good way to look at it. I don't think I saw it that way. Like,
I could be wrong. I could just be dead fucking wrong.
No,
I just think
you're bang on. I think you're spot on.
No, I like to bang on. Can you, if I ever write a book, can that be on the back? Your quote.
This whole book, bang on.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Be awesome. All right. Well, do you have any last words, any plugs, anything before we wrap up?
I would say always know your exits. Where, have a buddy system. I mean, self-sufficiency. It's all about self-sufficiency. Know how to make bread. Know how to build a house. Like, know how to make a fire and keep it safe. I'm hosting this weekend at Magooby's Joke House. I can't talk. I'm hosting this weekend at Magooby's. Come and see me. It's going to be super fun, you guys. I'm excited. Also, come to the Shit Show in July. Second Saturday, Shit Show. Other than that, drive safe. Use a blinker. Use a blinker is my final words.
Twitter.
At Watch Me Doing This. But come see me actually over on Instagram. I am doing the Die Laughing Productions Instagram. That's at Die Laughing Productions for the Murder Mystery Show. Do you know about the Murder Mystery?
Oh, really? Yeah, I've had Tommy Sabazzo on the podcast.
Yes.
And I talked a bunch with Rob about. Yes. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, at Die Laughing Productions on Instagram. Come see me.
Nice. Oh, that's really cool. I would ask you more about that if I. Damn it, Eric.
It's okay.
To Facebook stalk you the best I could, but that and Googling. Yeah, I should have checked out the Instagram. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. To listeners, you can find this podcast and more podcasts like it at erictries2hard.com, iTunes and YouTube at Eric Tries Too Hard. What the hell? Twitter at Eric Tries, and read stuff that I put out on the Hard Times, and also just read the Hard Times because that's the greatest thing ever. Kim, again, thank you for coming on, and I'm sure I'll see you out, and everyone go see Kim do stand up because she's really, really funny for realsies. For real realsies.
Oh, thanks.
All right. Well, have a good night. I will talk to you later.
You too. Night.